Welcome to episode 2 of Start Here. I have Chris with me, and I'm so excited to talk about really from his ground zero, the day zero to where he is at now. This podcast is from the messy middle and sleepless nights to the sparks of breakthrough. And this is a real conversation with founders who are still in the mud, building from scratch and redefining what it means to start. Let's start. So, Chris, I think I actually found you through Instagram when
Yep.
you were still doing the.
Garage.
Yeah. And if anybody doesn't know, Chris had started selling ramen out of his garage, more like a speakeasy style. And now he has his own restaurant and got a Michelin recently.
Yeah.
Got awarded
Yeah.
that. So many things to unpack here. Let's start from why you started in the garage and why you started this.
Sure. So, I think one of the biggest trade-offs and difficulties of being a passionate young professional in this industry is, you know, the most effective place to learn is going to be working for somebody else, but you're on the clock, right? You're there to do what they tell you to do. You're there to produce their recipes on their time, at their pace, and you learn very effectively, but there's very little room from creativity until you earn one of those positions of leadership, be it sous chef, head chef, something like that, right? And I didn't want to wait for something like that. I won out. I've watched my dad be his own boss my entire life, right? A chef, an entrepreneur, putting his own menus out there always, and I just always have that itch to produce food that represents me and has my touch and my kind of, my signature on it. So I had just graduated ACC Culinary, the associate's degree program, and I had a few classmates that had kind of like built a really, really nice professional home kitchen for themselves, right? Like, organized metro shelves for all of their
Wait, I'm going to
equipment.
stop you right there. How old are you? Because I don't know how old you are.
I am 27 now. I was 24 when we opened RDB.
Oh my God.
Yep.
And
Fresh
that
out of
was
school.
brick and mortar, right? So
Yep.
when did you, like, how old were you when you started selling ramen out of your garage?
I would have been 23, I think. Because I
Yeah.
did I did Ramen Garage genuinely. It was literally just 1 year. Like,
Wow.
it
Okay.
was 1 year, and I was only doing it about twice a month. So it was only about 24 Ramen Garage services ever done, and that's all it took.
That that's crazy.
Yeah.
I think it's because you actually have such an amazing product. Like, I mean, you yourself are like you are the product,
Thank
but
you.
you're making such great ramen for people to experience. And I also like social media is great.
Yeah, no, it was a crazy blow up for sure. And honestly, thank you for the compliments on the food, but Ramen Garage was as much of this like great product that I was putting out as much it was the trial and error of learning how to make ramen. Like, there were bowls that I look back on now and I'm like, fuck, I would never serve that again. So, the cool part about it, right, is like I wasn't charging for it. I still had a job Monday through Friday working in an actual restaurant, and it was obviously, one, the only venue to keep it as legal as possible was to not charge for it, because obviously I don't have permits for it. Out of my parents' garage, it is as underground gets. But it's basically an invite only private dinner in a home, right? The fact that it's in the garage, the fact that there's a time and that you all sit down together with strangers doesn't change the fact that it's basically an invited private dinner. That's how I posed it, that's how I kept it. So it was a real learning experience for me, and the fact that it blew up the way it did is incredible, and it was such a fever dream, right? Like, a few, like, the right bloggers find you, the right Instagram influencers find you, and you go to bed one night with like 300 followers on Instagram, and you wake up the next day with like 3,000, and from there it just kept growing. And by the time I opened RDB, the Ramen Garage Instagram was already sitting at 8,000 followers. So I just changed the name from Ramen Garage to Ramen Del Barrio. And I was like, guess what, guys? you're my new followers for this project now. I'm taking you all with me. I know you didn't sign up to follow this, but you kind of did. So, but we had an amazing start. It was just this huge head start to opening RDB with the following that we already had, right? I think there was this illusion that the Ramen Garage pop-ups were incredibly hard to get into, and the real reason was just scarcity, right? Like I wasn't doing it every night. I was doing it twice a month, and I was serving 30 to 36 people per event. So there's only about 60 or so people getting in on a monthly basis. So like when I say that, like, per event I had a wait list of over like 300 people, that was incredible and super cool. And yeah, it was really hard to get in, but it wasn't like I was doing like 300 people a day or anything, which is
No,
what we do at RDB now. But yeah, it was not quite. It was a really powerful tool, right? Presenting something on the internet, and it was never intentional. But yeah, this like artificial exclusivity came about just because I was only doing it twice a month. It was a hobby. It was a growth thing for me because I wasn't charging for it. I didn't have an obligation to turn seats quickly, right? Like it's not like how many bowls can I sell? It's just let's make X amount of food, make it worth my time in the sense that I am experiencing what it's like to entertain people. Because if you remember, it wasn't like it takes like 2 minutes to build a bowl of ramen, and it takes 10 to 15 to crush it if that's all you're doing and you're not talking, right? You're just going at it. So the challenge for me was to entertain my guests up to 45 minutes over just a bowl of ramen, right? And like that is such a dual threat ability for a chef, is to entertain the customers face to face, right? Because as line cooks, we would love to just hide back in the kitchen and just shit talk each other with all of the lewd jokes and slapping each other's asses and whatnot. All men for sure. We're not crossing those boundaries there. But it's a real skill to be able to walk out of that environment and present yourself professionally and entertain customers, right? You think about your sushi chefs running an omakase, or your bartenders, right? To be the face of the food is a real skill that not enough cooks have, and it's kind of one of the biggest boundaries that you have to cross to become more than just a line cook and step into that role of a chef, is being an entertainer for sure.
yeah, the entertaining part is like salespeople in a
Yep.
way.
Yep. Definitely. You have to tell the story and whatnot, right? Yeah. So it's a huge part of it.
I think there was a lot of components that went into it. Like, yes, the product was really good. Like, the ramen's amazing. And if you guys have not, like, anybody listening to this, like, if you have not tried the ramen, just fly to Austin and, like, stalk this guy. But you talked about the exclusivity. There's only a certain number of people that get to experience this. And so people feel so special to be chosen in some kind of way. And then you're also building up this kind of community, which maybe you didn't expect to, right? You just said that you wanted to create an experience and try the ramen recipes. Did you expect to end up having such a following, like a community, like, or were you like, oh, this is fun, like, let's see where this goes?
Well, I think there was always this balance of trying to respect my parents' liability with the fact that I was running this out of their garage with no permits, and I didn't have the money to pay any fines if fines were to be a thing, right? So they're like, and my parents were living in Mexico and I'm in Austin, so they can't stop me from doing it, but they can yell at me over phone. They're like, why are you doing this? Like, you're going to get us in trouble, and we are going to have to pay a fine if you get caught by the city. It did not. It did
No.
not. It never did. And, there was this kind of like balance between saying, every time I get a new face, that's more exposure, it's new clients, it's all of that. But at the same time, again, there was no financial incentive. I was like, fuck it, let's just prioritize repeat customers. And that way, because it's such a short list, you end up seeing each other on a regular basis. And then I don't have to do the intro to how it works. It goes right into, hey guys, here we are. Let's fucking do this, right? Like this is the bowl of the day. So I've had, one of the coolest things, because I have done like a few private dinners through Ramen Del Barrio now that kind of call back to Ramen Garage. some of my first customers in Ramen Garage days, I've gotten to watch their lives play out on Instagram, right? Like gotten engaged, get married, have a home, have kids, like all of these different things over the course of like 3 to 4 years now. And it's so cool that, I get to call these people back for these events, and I'm just catching up with some of my very first and most loyal patrons, right? Before I had a Michelin Bib Gourmand, before we were James Beard nominated, it was just people taking a chance on showing up to eat ramen in some stranger's garage, right? Like it was genuinely like it was definitely sus for some people. They were like, are you like, is this real? And I think the customer's perspective was probably more suspicious or untrusting than my own, because obviously I know what I'm doing, like, but I only had one weird encounter in all of Ramen Garage's days. I was missing, I want to say I had two of my six guests already seated, and I was missing another four. And I think like 5 minutes past had gone, and I'm like, man, where are these people? And I hear a knock at the front door of the house. So I'm like, oh, that must be them. So I, wander back through the house, and I go to the front door, and I open. I'm like, hey, and they're like, hey, and I'm like, Ramen Garage, and they're like, no, house party. And I'm like, no, Ramen Garage. So they were kind of like freaked out too, and I'm like, y'all, because they let themselves in too. Like I didn't even get to the door first. They just opened up and came like, y'all are here for Ramen Garage, right? And they're like, no, what the fuck is that? And I'm like, okay, get out of my house then. So they had the address wrong. They were looking for a house party like a few buildings down or something.
I was that the one where it was a holiday?
The only holiday I remember serving was Thanksgiving, and I
Okay,
don't think
I
that was
went
the
to the
day.
Thanksgiving one. I think
Yeah,
I
it was
went
a
to that
clam
one.
ramen. I
Yes, that was
did. Yep,
amazing.
yep, yep. So no, that was a different one because it was actually like fully dark out. I remember doing the Thanksgiving one more so like middle of the day, and
Mhm.
that event was so cool, right? Because that ramen is very like New England seafood, coastal inspired, and it just so happened that that Thanksgiving service, it was like 60 degrees out and raining and like
It was,
foggy.
yeah, it was
So
perfect.
I just left the garage door open, and like the mist is rolling in on your back like you're out on like a pier in
Yeah,
New
it was
England.
great.
That was like perfect. So yeah, great experience there. And that was the only time I had strangers come in
I do want
that
to
weren't intentional.
paint a picture for people that have never experienced this. So like this is not a blacked out garage, y'all. Like he decorated this in a nice way. Like it looked like you were maybe at a ramen shop in Japan, right? Like with the correct decorations and the ambiance. So it was not sketchy at all. But it does take a certain type of person to trust to go to a random stranger's house and have food served to them. I mean, we're in this age of like digital and like everyone, or not just dating apps, but you'll just get into like a random person's car. But it still takes a certain type of person to show up at a random person's house. I'm surprised that throughout the whole thing you've only had one like weird encounter. But
Yeah, I mean, I think, like something that I've picked up along the way is through repetition and exposure, you just continuously earn more credibility. Like as soon as the bloggers posted videos of us, there's like hard concrete evidence of it existing and it being legit, right? It was those first few rounds that were like, oh, is this real? Is this legit? But then as soon as you've actually created an online presence, then you're kind of trusted, right?
yeah,
So yeah, definitely a different experience, but I can relate to that now in Ramen Del Barrio because for the first year and a half, right? Like you pull up and we've always been busy, but you pull up and there'll be like a line of 30 to 40 people deep. And some people would say, fuck that, right? Like this is taking too long, like this couldn't possibly be worth it. And they get cranky in line. They start to ask like, what's the deal? Like what's taking so long? Fast forward another year to the present date with the Michelin Bib Gourmand, people do not bother us. They're like, "Oh yeah, we're here for Michelin Bib Gourmand ramen." They just shut the fuck up and they sit in line and they behave themselves because
yeah.
they now come with the notion that they are supposed to believe it's going to be worth it, right? We now have that credibility. So the exposure, the repetition, and the credibility definitely makes people more trusting. Yeah, for sure.
And I've never heard of anybody serving ramen out of the garage. Like, it's just such a new foreign concept that, like, of course I'm gonna go. Why would I not try this
Sure.
out?
Yeah.
And I was a little sad. Like, I'm so happy for all your success and stuff. And I was a little sad because I really enjoyed the garage. I really enjoyed.
Yeah. 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 Well, I mean, my parents, they killed that project either way because that house they had purchased as more so an investment long term for them. It was a place for my brother and I to like stay during college. But they had always told us like once you guys are done with college, you're getting your own places and we're gonna Airbnb this bitch. Like it's this isn't how we're this if you can afford the 4,000 a month, great. But otherwise, we're gonna find some tech bros.
Yeah.
It's so close to the Oracle, so there was it was a great house in a great area of town. So Ramen Garage was coming to an end either way. It was an incredible timeline, right? Like the amount of things that have lined up for me from point A to point B is just ridiculous because Ramen Del Barrio did not happen prior to me knowing that Ramen Garage was ending. I was given a deadline for Ramen Garage to close. My parents were ending it at the end of that year. They were like, come December, first, we want you to move out so we can rent this place.
Yeah.
When they first told me that, I did not have the investment opportunity that was given to me to open Ramen Del Barrio. So I was desperate, trying to figure out how do I translate this unique experience to its next phase. And I was considering, doing catering with it, private events, which would have been really tricky, right? Because I can't get rented to go out and serve like a group of like four people in their house because that's it's a volume game. It's not going to be worth my time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need to have this place that people come to. The chances are who's going to want to rent their house out to act as a shop for the day and have a bunch of people come through, right? So it was incredible timing that the opportunity I had came when it came, right? Someone came in to the garage, they saw what we were doing, and they were like, hey, I want to see if you want to do this for real.
Yeah, and that kind of leads to you getting an investor and a
Yeah.
partner.
Yep. So, yeah, it was an incredible opportunity because ultimately at 24 years old, never in my mind was I thinking about opening a restaurant right then and there. Like, it was always a dream of mine to open one, but at no point did I consider myself ready for it. Did I consider myself prepared, equipped? None of those things. It was really this like, hey, if you want to spend the money on a 24-year-old kid to open a restaurant and see how it goes, I'm not going to say no because like who gives a 24-year-old kid a chance to
Yeah.
open a restaurant? And ultimately I had never been sous chef before. So, recipe costing, while I had these tools from culinary school, I had never put them to use yet. So, costing, leadership, management, production, all of these things were trial and error. And just like, I mentioned if I could like take back so many of the bowls that I served in the earlier days of Ramen Garage, if I could take back the first 6 months of Ramen Del Barrio, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Because I
Really?
know, oh yeah, I know the product that we were initially putting out versus what's being done now is night and day difference. I would be embarrassed to serve what I was serving in the first 6 months for sure. And it was more so consistency issues, but also Ramen Del Barrio when we first opened, I put that concept together in like 2 months. I did not have Ramen Del Barrio's concept written out when they came to me. And ultimately,
This person just like was eating and was like, "Hey,
yeah, they're like, "Do you want to open a shop?" In Ramen Garage, the only Mexican bowl I had ever served was like the menudo tonkotsu, right? With like the honeycomb tripe, like the cow stomach soup.
yeah,
And it was a delicious bowl, and it definitely had me thinking, like, there's probably room to expand on this idea. So the next bowl that came into play was like the carnitas tonkotsu, right? And that's kind of like the staple of our shop now. It allows us to showcase these two prominent elements of both Japanese and Mexican food, and they're both simple yet wholesome enough that they come together in a really neutral but balanced way, right? Neither is trying to outshine the other, they're actually working in harmony. And that is the core of Ramen Del Barrio's fusion, is that dish right there. It's very
I,
emblematic of everything else that we're doing, for sure.
yeah, I love that. I would say, I mean, this podcast is for like, aspiring founders and like people to just like pull inspiration from, and like usually I will ask like things like, did you want to raise? Did you want to get money? But like after knowing your story, you're like, it just kind of fell into your lap.
It did. It's such an incredible story, and it's always been this really, really fine balance between imposter syndrome and also like giving myself credit where it's due. Because ultimately, like, yes, I was a talented cook. I've always been one, but there's a lot of talented cooks, and frankly, there are cooks more talented than me. Even in Austin, like there are cooks that I look up to and still admire to this day, saying, "Man, like if I could work for that person for a week, I have so much to learn from them." And on the flip side is also giving credit where it's due. I look back and say, yes, I was given this incredible opportunity, but look what I did with it.
Yeah.
Because, they couldn't have given that opportunity to just anybody,
Yeah.
right? They could have, but it wouldn't have yielded what it did. And I think also that comes down to the choice I made in continuing to depend on the idea of something that is a novelty. And this is the biggest lesson that I've taken away in my very few years of owning a restaurant and being a creator in that space, is that of the things that matter to a business's success, obviously consistency and quality are paramount, right? For
Hmm.
sure. But when you create something that has no symmetric competition, that's where you really hit the sweet spot. Because yes, there are other ramen shops in Austin and there are other Mexican restaurants in Austin, and plenty of them are doing fantastic work. But nobody in Austin provides what Ramen Del Barrio does, and because of that, there is only one place to get it, right? So the novelty gets people in the door, the consistency and quality keeps them coming back. So it's like I know now when I think about like, because ultimately on the trajectory that we're at, I'll be in, knock on wood, I'll be in a really, really great financial position once I've finished paying off the loans on the new shop, on all of that. Once that final stage is done, I can really take a step back and say, like, what I want to do now. I can fund my own projects now. I can open a second restaurant out of pocket, right?
Hmm.
So I look at that proposition and say, man, like the bar that I have set for myself on what success looks like really screams like, is that replicable without finding something? Because like that to me has been the biggest lesson, is find something that is purely, truly unique and original is really hard to do. And RDB is kind of like lightning in a bottle. There was nothing really like it before it, and it can't really be replicated without being a direct ripoff, right? Like you certainly couldn't do it in Austin. If anybody tries to open a Japanese Mexican fusion ramen shop, they're going to get called out for that. Not
Yeah.
to say they couldn't legally do it, but it'd be
Yeah.
hard to get away with it in the face of the public. But I think about that, and if I were to say like I couldn't just like, I'm super passionate about Italian cuisine, like Sichuan cuisine, all of these different foods that I would love to delve into and just pour my time into creating a concept. But I'm going to say like, will it have the same pull? Will it stand up to my metric of success? Because I think overall, like the Austin market is relatively oversaturated for restaurants, right? And it's not to say that there aren't a lot of great concepts that,
I think good restaurants. I think good restaurants. I'm from California, so I'm very spoiled with like
yeah,
all the food.
sure.
But even when it's really great out here, I would say that the pricing doesn't match.
That's the killer. So there are, when people shit on Austin's food scene, it's really misguided. There's actually delicious food all across town.
Mm-hmm.
Is
There.
the issue is that the price point kills the actual enjoyment and value of it. Because I've had meals where if I hadn't felt like I was like robbed on the way out the door, I would have said, "Wow, this is great food. This is a delicious meal, right?" So like even recently, I went to a sushi restaurant. I'm not going to name names because that's not what we're here for. But I went to a sushi restaurant that I had always wanted to go to, and I knew was out of my reach financially, but I was invited to go, and it was an incredibly delicious meal. But for 5 people, had they not sent us all of the dishes that they were so gracious to send us, For 5 people, the bill would have been $800, and we didn't even order drinks,
Mm.
and we didn't leave stuffed. Like it was still a cheeseburger after omakase kind of deal.
Yeah, that's
And that to me just screams like, I'm sorry, but you just can't justify the price. You just
yeah,
can't.
yeah,
And ultimately, I think there's a double-edged sword there is they can justify the price because they're packed every night.
yeah.
So, like, there's clearly enough people. I am of the opinion that there are too many people in this town that have too much money for their own good. There are people in this town that are just don't know how to, they have too much money, they don't deserve it because I see the way they spend it and it just doesn't make sense to me.
No,
And
I think it's I think people can have money, but like maybe it's the supply here that's not really making sense too, because they can only spend it at those specific places.
I don't know. See, I have a soft spot. So I sushi is my favorite food. Now,
Mhm.
I have had Michelin starred omakase in Japan. I have had omakase here in the States, and I am a volume eater of sushi. I
Mhm.
want to stuff my face. Obviously, I know what quality sushi is, but I want to eat a lot of it, and you can't afford to eat Michelin omakase sushi at the volume that my stomach can handle. So I end up hitting this softer spot. And also, now as a chef, I understand food costs because Ramen Del Barrio buys the same bluefin tuna that all of these omakase places are buying, and I'm charging a fraction of what they are, and I have a 20% profit margin. So
Yeah,
they are scalping their guests.
for
They
sure.
are. For
They
their
are.
name. It's the branding, it's the name. And look, more power to them as a company, right? Like I am a capitalist. I'm not going to pretend that I'm not pro making as much money as you
Yeah.
can, but I'm also still I grew up with frugal, hardworking parents. Like
Yeah.
I'm not a person of many wants and needs. Like I want to be able to travel around the world. I want to be able to take care of a family one day. But you're not going to catch me dead buying a Lamborghini just because I could. It's a waste of money. Like I would be so much happier with something way more relaxed, and it's still going to be a great quality car. Like I don't know. I don't see value in many of the most notorious famous names here in town.
It
And
is really just branding too, but I will
yep,
also say when you get closer to downtown, just because my background is in real estate,
I'm sure the
they're
rent, their
yeah,
overhead.
yeah,
Yep.
you're not
Yep.
paying for the food, you're paying for the rent.
Sure, sure. I can't. Okay, so without like picking out a specific property, tell me what a piece of prime real estate would cost in downtown or like prime South Congress or prime South Lamar for 3,000 square feet.
That
Too generic, too broad, or
I think that's like 25, 30K right there. I don't like if it's prime location. So I
see if
actually
it's 25,000 a month, I know. So here's the thing. My best day in sales ever is 9K. I can pay my rent in half a day of sales. So I know that the restaurants that we're both talking about here, they can pay their rent in a day because they're doing hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales on a daily basis, some of these places,
yeah.
right? Like the top of the line sushi places that are charging the prices that they're charging, they're breaking 100,000 a day, which means they're paying their rent in a day. So it's really not that. Like I've heard that there are restaurants that are profiting in the tens of millions on a yearly basis. And that's good. That's a great
Yeah.
thing for them.
Yeah.
But I've always that I don't understand. I would rather serve more people at a lower price point and make the same amount of money than serving fewer people at a higher price point because that just means I'm more accessible, right? Like if I can serve 300 people a day and charge them $30 a head, why would I why would I do 100 people a day for $300 a head? I know that math isn't quite right, but like
Because you're
it,
so focused on your quality of the product. Like there's a lot of people that would just gladly take the money and do subpar work. but you probably are like, well, that's not what I want to be. That's not my image. Like, that's not who you are as a person. So I think that's a differentiator.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just like I still view things also from that frugal standpoint of knowing what it actually costs to make. And I still, ultimately, again, because I am now like I'm the sole owner of my company, so any profits would be mine. There's no more profit shares, it's just profits. Would be going straight into my pocket if it weren't for the fact that I'm building this war chest to fund the brick and mortar. So on a monthly basis, my income is just my base salary. Like I'm cashing like 4K a month after tax right now. And that's not a whole lot, right? Like that's taking up like my rent takes up a good percentage of my monthly income, and it's all because we're building towards something. But at the same time, I just can't justify the prices. Like, and it's not just the sushi places, right? Like I know that, say for example, a bowl of ramen. On a bowl of ramen, my food cost is about $3 tops. If you look at an Italian bolognese pasta dish, probably comparable. My bowl of ramen goes for 17.50 right now. That pasta dish can run you 28 to 35 bucks. Easy, depending on where you go. And they're
Mm.
going to say it's the rent, but I don't see it. Like it's just unreasonable. And what I was getting at earlier with like the Austin market being oversaturated, if that weren't true, then why do we see like 80% of restaurants fail in their first 2 years? If there were a demand, then every single business would be flooded with customers. But everyone's trying to make it.
Yeah, I don't want to say just restaurants too, but like businesses in general, like startups in general, like
It's
it,
competitive. It's cutthroat.
yeah, what is it saturated in good quality things? No, because if it was saturated in that, like they would probably make it further.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Like just the quantity of businesses, it's survival of the fittest, right? Like that in that sense, sure, if you're not opening a good enough product, you're not going to make it because there is good product out there. But like, I listen to my vendors, my suppliers talk about how, all of the restaurant that they deliver to are ordering less and less, which obviously means their sales are going down, so they're not purchasing as much inventory. Meanwhile, mine's going up, right? Like I'm ordering more and more on a regular basis. And while it's a skewed and narrowed perspective, I think specifically of, like how many pho shops are there in Austin? How many Italian pasta places are there in Austin versus how many ramen shops there are? Like there are some specific subsections of the market that may be overcrowded, and it's just not feasible because if there were the demand for it, then there'd be enough. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I completely agree when you're talking about novelty and you're talking about like bringing something to the market that like people have not been able to experience anymore. And I kind of want to go back when you said that if you could erase the first 6 months of Ramen Garage, I kind of want to get your opinion on that too, because I think that those failures, not failures, but like the mistakes and like now you look back, you might have regrets. I think that kind of propelled you forward. Like, thankfully, that 6 months didn't happen during the restaurant phase.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I meant to like I said like there's a bunch of bowls in Ramen Garage that I regret. The
Oh,
six
God.
mo- the six
Sorry, sorry.
months was the first 6 months of Ramen Del Barrio. And if the food hadn't progressed, if I hadn't seen where we needed to grow, I don't think we'd be where we are today because novelty without quality is a one and done, right? If I were putting out the food that Ramen del Barrio is putting out in its first 6 months today, I wouldn't have a Bib Gourmand. I wouldn't have an episode on Triple D. Like none of these things would have happened because how many times have we seen something really cool blow up on Instagram and close within a year, right?
Yeah.
Like it happens all the time. There are businesses out there that get blown up that look so cool and you go there and it's whatever and you just don't go back. So you can only thrive off of that novelty for so long. You're gonna like if you don't have repeat customers, there's no way you survive off of novelty alone.
Yeah. And I think that's a good lesson for just this whole episode, really being so obsessive in your craft and then reiterating as you go. Because what I'm hearing is that for those 6 months, like if you didn't look at those bowls and see what was wrong, and you were kind of ignorant to it, like you wouldn't have ended up where you are now.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, again, if Ramen Del Barrio was serving the food today that it was serving in the first 6 months, I don't think we'd still be open. I think people would say this isn't good enough, right? It's not doing what it says it's trying to do, which is be perfect fusion. Like, I think about the specific mistakes and creative choices that I've adapted along the way to improve our product day over day over day. Like, for example, we used to make our carnitas in one large batch at the start of the week, and then we would just like heat it up for the line as needed throughout the week, because we're only open for 5 of the 7 days, because that Monday Tuesday is our prep schedule, and we only started with like 4 employees back in the day, including myself. And there was never this notion of like, what if we come in every morning at 6 a.m. to fire the carnitas? But now, as the sales increase, as the volume increases, I can justify that labor. And then obviously through that is this drastic improvement in quality. Because, it's just like brisket. Nobody wants reheated brisket. Like, no barbecue joint in Austin is thriving off of day-old brisket. You're firing that shit on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So that's what really brings Ramen del Barrio to its peak performance, is the fact that we are executing elements of two different cuisines as if each of those cuisines were our sole focus, right? Like, we're
Yeah.
not just half-assing these two things. We take each side of it with equal importance and dedication. You could strip either one of these two cultures out of Ramen del Barrio, and it would either be an excellent Japanese restaurant or it would be an excellent Mexican restaurant. And that's the quality that we've now achieved that is earning us the recognition that we have.
I think the most successful founders and entrepreneurs and like business owners is like not only do they care about like what they bring to the market and like how their clients and customers are feeling, but like you are just so obsessed yourself. Like and you're happy about it, you know? Like maybe other people will have friends and you make certain sacrifices. It's like you can't go to a birthday party, you can't do that, and I think other people would look at this life as maybe a little bit like depressing or like a little bit sad because you're not doing this stuff. But like I'm just so excited to be doing what I do. Like I love what I do, so I'm
Yeah.
not sad.
Well, I've had the opportunity to kind of share that side of things because, it's been a massive impact on the journey I've had in my personal life, right? It has affected my personal relationships drastically.
It does.
Yeah, people looking, and not just the way that I experience things, but the way I'm seen by people and the way that we all make assumptions about how we function, right? Like, people look at me and say I have everything figured out, I have life so easy, I get to follow my dreams and my passion. It's like, dude, none of this replace whatever personal growth I still needed to achieve, right? Like, we're talking about how obsessed I am, and you know, a lot of that comes from seeking validation, right? There's always this internal struggle throughout anyone's life, whatever personal wounds we have, whatever motivates us in life, success. Why do we actually crave success? What is actually pushing us? Because ultimately, like I say, like, I'm not really a person of great financial aspirations. Like, I do this for validation internally and externally. This has been this massive journey of finding out who I am and how I click, why I do what I do. And, catching myself seeing notifications on Instagram on a daily basis. I'm like, dude, you don't need to check this every 5 minutes, dude. Like, yeah, you're going to get a bunch of likes on it. And getting that quick rush and that validation and becoming aware of why I'm looking for these things. And seeing how like romantic partners have viewed me and how friends have viewed me that were in the industry, and seen like, oh, you've got this, you've got that. I'm like, dude, it is depressing a lot of the time because it is lonely at the top in many ways. And I'm not necessarily at, one person's thriving as another person's surviving. I'm not saying I've achieved everything there is out there to do, but at the age of 27, it's really hard to find a company my age that can relate to what I'm doing in life.
Yeah.
And that experience is very lonely, right? Like having a romantic partner that is still trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives, and then you're running a business at 27. That's just such a, it's so hard to relate. And it's it's ended multiple relationships for me, just trying to bridge that gap, and it's a really really hard place to be. So, to anyone out there who sees it and thinks it's this glamorous celebrity chef lifestyle, it doesn't displace whatever you've got going on personally. It is, like, I've had so many talks now, like trying to come full circle with my dad and his life, right? He opened his first restaurant back in like 85 with his like first wife, and she left him out of the blue, right? Like for his best friend in the middle of the night, like disappeared out of nowhere. And he very much the boomer response, but told me like his answer is like, yeah, I just kind of buried my head in work for the for the
Yeah.
next like 15 years, and that's how I healed. I'm like, that doesn't sound like healing. That sounds like repression. Um, so there's a balance of regaining my personal life, and to any aspiring entrepreneurs out there, it is as hard as they say. And if you're passionate about it, the work isn't the hard part. It's recovering the personal side of things. That is the biggest challenge in my life. I still get the same daily thrill that I get going into work every day, but it's coming home at the end of the night and just laying in bed, staring at the ceiling, taking those deep breaths at the end of a long day. And that's where it really kind of comes together, and you're trying to figure out what happiness really means or doesn't mean.
There's so many things that like I could touch on.
Yeah.
I one like the whole being a founder or being an entrepreneur and like starting your own business, like I've come to terms with it because I was like, well, if people just became business owners, like they could make so much more money, like why
Yeah.
would anyone do
Yeah.
this? I think about that, and I've now come to terms with like not everybody wants that lifestyle. Maybe some people want to do a 9 to 5 and just clock the heck out and never think about anything again. And then I came to terms with that. And then another thing is, I think everyone has a different motive, whether it be the internal, external validation, and or maybe they're like repressing their own emotions. Maybe it's some kind of like childhood trauma or something. Or, at the end of it, a legacy and like passing
Yep.
things on to other people. Or,
Definitely.
I mean, there's so many things, and like, and I think in the last year I've realized that being a founder, being an entrepreneur, all this stuff, it's very spiritual. And I don't have a religion that I subscribe to or anything, but I'm like agnostic. I'm like, very welcoming of anything. But the grit and the amount of emotional labor that comes through with like not having friends, or like having a very small circle of friends, and
Yeah.
not everybody understanding what the heck you're trying to do. Because yeah, maybe you don't want to go out. I don't know, like on a Saturday or
Yeah.
Sunday or whatever.
A huge thing for me, right? Like I'm a bit of an oversharer here, but I
Yeah.
think like one of the coolest elements, like my parents have watched some of the podcasts I've done. They're like, why are you talking about that? Like this is everyone's seeing this, dude. Like keep that to yourself, bro. And I'm like, no, I think like one of the coolest opportunities for me, it's not like I'm like seeking pity or just trying to like voice these things in a woe is me, like give me attention, give me this or that. But it is a really really cool space to kind of let this out and be real with it. And I love all of the different like food entertainment mediums out there. I think like Parts Unknown, Anthony Bourdain, right? This really gritty, real approach to life with a little bit of cynicism and realism to it is a really beautiful thing. And one of my favorite things about going on podcasts and talking about it isn't talking about the good, but talking about the bad.
Yeah.
And like one of the things that happened for me, and I talk about how um my romantic partners have maybe viewed me and compared themselves to my success and felt inferior or felt jealous. I have also had the inverse of that experience, saying age 24 through 27 vanished for me. And I really didn't get to experience a lot of that kind of fucking around youth that my partners have had in the past. I'm like, man, I'm kind of jealous. You've like lived a really fun, adventurous life, and I've just been working and working and working. So that jealousy plays both ways. It's not like they're the problem and I'm just over here living life. Like that is something that I need to heal and I need to grow on, is looking at that and saying, this is something I chose for myself. It's given me an incredible setup for the rest of my life, but it did come with costs. And now, like at 27, I am really kind of just like taking a step back and realizing just like how much time has passed for me, and kind of reframing what would have otherwise been regrets into like new opportunities, right? Like, okay, like shit, like, yeah, I did miss out on that, but I'm only 27. Now we need to start thinking about how can we retake what we feel like I've lost, right? So, you say about like talking about like friends and stuff like that. I'm really, really blessed that I grew up in restaurants my whole life, and it could be a really toxic environment when it's mom and dad and you live and work together. So I have always strived to create a workplace that is really warm and inviting, because when I left home, I said I was never going to work in a kitchen because all I knew was yelling and toxicity and stuff like that. But then I get a job at Chipotle on Riverside, and I'm just cooking and there's no more scream. Like, oh, holy shit, this is really fun. I love this. This is great. So, understanding that it actually truly was a passion of mine that just needed a safe space has turned into this privilege and responsibility for me to foster that environment. And, like I tell my crew all the time, like, guys, you can make as many mistakes as it takes to learn how to do your jobs right. But the second you disrespect one of your teammates or me, you're fucking gone. Like, do not bring hostile, toxic attitudes into this kitchen, because we spend more time with each other than we do with our actual families at home, right? We're in there 50, 60, 70 hours a week. That is a family, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm really blessed that through my style, but also the people I've chosen, right? Because that's not going to work with just anybody. You have to be a good person to fit into that environment. There are people out there that just burn out cooks, right? There's a lot of burnt out cooks that don't really want to do it anymore, but they're financially obligated to continue. I'm really fortunate that the people I have in my crew respond well to that. And I can say that each and every single one of them are friends of mine, right? So yeah. While I don't have this extravagant social life of like going down to 6th Street or partying or clubbing or anything like that, which isn't really me regardless, we're going bowling after work on Saturdays, right? We're having parties in my apartment where we all get together and we order food. We're ordering pizza to the shop after work and getting fucked up there. Like, I still have a social life. It's just that it's now tied into work, and it's still this beautiful community. So reframing expectations versus reality is this ongoing evolution too, for sure.
Yeah. Reframing is such an important, it's such an important tool, not just in business, but just like life. Like, just switch it.
Definitely.
And the words that, your brain tries to like make notes of. What is one advice you would give to anybody listening, since this is for founders and like taking risks, starting something new? And
well, I mean, there's the pursuit of success side of things, the actual entrepreneurial skill set. And again, like I've hammered this in, but your best bet for success, if you're not talented, you shouldn't be doing this either way, right? We should hypothetically be talking to people who have a set of skills and passion and drive and motivation, because once you're doing this on your own, there is nobody else to motivate you. There is nobody else to tell you what to do. And some of us thrive with a boss. Some of us thrive with an authority figure telling us, forcing us, pushing us, motivating us. And I kind of sit somewhere in the middle. Like, I do respond well as a line cook to authority. Like, I am from that generation of cooks that I kind of like, I don't like it in the moment, but it pushed me forward having a chef kind of tell me, shut the fuck up and do what I say. Like, that helps sometimes. It does, because it makes you better. It's just, it's smithing. You're just getting hammered.
Yeah, you're getting humbled, and you're like,
and it's keeping you in line, and it's also a dying breed, because that's not how I treat my cooks, right? Like, It's kind of like I drowned, so I ran so they could walk, so to speak, or something along those lines. Like, I got my ass beat, I got chewed out and yelled at to know what that looks like and to know what the actual success is supposed to be, to give my crew a safer environment to still achieve that same success, right? And I'm like, guys, believe me, it could be so much worse. Let's get this done. Like, it could, yeah, I have never once yelled at you guys. I have been yelled at many times. Like, trust, like this is a really nice place to get this done. So, I think that, not everybody is built to be an entrepreneur. You need to have talent, and you also need to have drive and creativity. And if you have those things, you need to push yourself and you need to understand that there is nobody there that's going to get it done but you. There's nobody that you can rely on, save the people you pay, but that comes later. Like, when you start up, when you're first going, it's just you. And you have to be the sole motivator, the sole enforcer of your standards. So that's the advice that I would have on the professional side of things. On the personal side of things is to forgive yourself as you go along and to be really kind to yourself, because one of my biggest struggles has been being my own harshest critic, right? And that comes through the business, but also through the individual, and finding time to actually enjoy your success and giving yourself credit for it is a really, really hard thing. So there's all sorts of different avenues and categories, and entrepreneurship is not just chefing. There's a bazillion different careers out there where somebody can start up their own business within an industry. So that doesn't, I just happen to chose one of the careers that requires the most blood, sweat, and tears of many. But that's not to say that there aren't harder jobs out there, and there are also easier jobs out there. But nonetheless, in my experience, finding time to be kind to yourself along the way has been one of the biggest challenges. So give yourself room to grow and room to breathe along the way. Self-care is really important.
I love that. And now I think I'm just gonna end it with my last question. And I think this is a little bit more personal. I think this is more something that I'm curious about, because you also have not only just chefs in your team, you also have, like, you are also running the business and all of it too. I think my question is more so, when you see that there is potential in somebody, and you really want to work with them, but it doesn't go the way as you planned, right? Like, maybe you're seeing the potential and it's actually not there. Like, when do you know to, like, cut the cord and you're like, okay, I have to forgive myself for this. Like, it's just the nature versus nurture kind of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do. So, I'm incredibly blessed with the team that I have right now, and nobody's perfect. Like, there is still this daily maintenance and management that goes into spending my time individually nurturing these people. But along the way, I've I've had to grow as a leader, because when I first opened the shop, I took this kid Edwin with me. We were line cooks back at Kimudi, and we had worked together for like 2 years. And basically, whatever my chef taught me, I was teaching him in Spanish. Right, this young Guatemalan kid, and he was one of the hardest workers. He would get just in pure effort and muscle. He was a machine. There was nobody that could handle what he could handle. And I saw that effort and I was like, dude, like that's the kind of work ethic that I want. And it was a little misguided and naive on my part to give this kid basically the role of sous chef, right? And he didn't necessarily earn it. I gave it to him as my friend. And that really created this rift when the going got tough, when it was actually time to be his boss and not his friend. He didn't respond well to it. He was like, why are you treating me this way? He's like, I would tell him to correct something and he'd be like, well, you do that too. And I'm like, motherfucker, it doesn't matter what I do. I pay you. I make mistakes because I'm overextended. I am being the chef, the front of house, the administrator. Like, I cannot be perfect at all of these jobs, but you're just being asked to be a line cook. You do have to be a perfect line cook. So, the growth that I've had as a leader is understanding that people respond differently to different forms of authority. In the perfect world, I have told every single person who's ever worked for me that if you come in and you do your job exactly as instructed and intended, you will never notice that I'm anything more than a line cook in the trenches with you. And that's how I want it to be. I don't want to come in and be a boss. I started this wanting to cook. And every day I go more and more towards becoming that office chef, desk chef, as opposed to the line cook that I really want to be. And that is like, that sucks. But it's still my obligation because there's no one else to do it unless I hire someone, right? Like one day I'm going to set my company up to where my job is to come in, prep my station, get my ass beat, clean my station, and go home. And then just write specials, right? Like I don't want to hire people. I don't want to manage payroll. I don't want to do these things. I am a cook at heart. But you are forced to adapt and grow along the way. And because of that, I am who I am today. So leading through respect and mutual respect above all else is always the best way to go. And honestly, I'm in a blessed position because people want to work at Ramen Del Barrio, not just for the financial, but for the career potential of learning, right? You're not just learning one cuisine, you're learning two cuisines. That is a jump start for your career right there. You're learning effective tools from two different cuisines, from two different parts of the world at the same time, right? So there's a huge learning opportunity for young cooks at Ramen Del Barrio. And people are incentivized to go there. So I kind of get to pick and choose who I work with. But ultimately, in my eyes, if you have people that that work for you that only respond to authority, you got the wrong people. Like you shouldn't have to be an asshole to be a good boss, to be a boss, right? And something I've learned when choosing my sous chefs and my lead preps and my lead line cooks, the people that make the best leaders are the people who don't want to do it. In the sense that they don't want to tell their coworkers what to do. They're the people who are the best at their jobs, but have no interest in leading because they care and they respect and they trust their teammates. When you find someone who cares about the business, right? Because like this was something like, when I first, you asked how do I find talent, and my current sous chef, my number two in my business is this young girl, and she started in the dish pit, right? And within a year and a half, she had mastered every single line cook station and became sous chef. And the moment I realized she was meant to be my sous chef is I was teaching her and another employee or part-timer of mine how to slice sashimi. And the part-timer had graduated culinary school with me, and they had like 8 years of line cooking experience. And I gave them both the knife, I showed them how to do it, and then I put them to do it. And this girl, she did it instantaneously, like 5 times better. And I was like, all right, you've got photographic memory. You've got muscle memory. I can show this person something once and I don't have to show them again. And that was the moment I was like, okay, you're going to be my sous chef. Because that relationship that I've built along the way, when I first plucked her out of the dish pit, I was like, hey, guess what? You're going to learn ramen today. And she's like, no, please don't. I can't do it. And I was like, no, I think you can do it. So we started training her. And she did really well, and she went from ramen 2, the person who's just whisking noodles in the pasta boiler and dumping noodles in, to ramen 1, the person who's saying, okay, we're going to work these tickets, these are the add-ons, these are the toppings, right? The person that really does the brain power of the station, not the muscle of the station, because it's a tag team. So all of a sudden she's doing ramen 1, and she's great. And at that point, I was still the person working grill every day. I was doing the tacos, and I told her, come here. Time to learn how to cook with charcoal. And she was like, no, I can't do it. I'm not good enough. There's no way I can do it. And I was like, that's what you said about ramen. And then sure enough, right? She learns how to do grill. And now she works grill every day of the week. And she gets her ass beat, but she does it with pride. And there was nothing more rewarding of her coming to me crying, saying, thank you so much for forcing me to do the things that I was scared to do, that I didn't think I was going to be able to do, because now I know I can. And now I know that when chef asks me to do something, I'll know I'll figure it out. So seeing her growth along the way has been like the most rewarding experience in seeing my own leadership improve, which is making others grow and giving them the opportunity to grow. When you're trying to look for talent, it should be apparent. It's going to come in the sense that they're working harder than everybody else, they're learning faster than everybody else, and they're holding everyone else accountable, not because they want to lead, but because they care about it, right? So that ties back into the whole idea of who makes a good leader. It's the person who cares the most and has no interest in power. Someone who craves power is not going to be a good leader.
Just go to
Someone who,
politics.
yeah, go into politics, go be a lawyer, go do something like that. If you crave power, you're not going to be a good leader. The good leader is the person who doesn't crave power but cares enough to do it anyway. And that's how I identify myself. I hate telling people what to do. And that comes for me personally from a place of wanting people to like me, right? Like, I fear being the asshole boss means losing the respect and friendship I have with an employee. And that's what happened with my first sous chef. Is he saw me more friend than boss, and I lost the power dynamic in that relationship, and it had to end. So there is that balance of authority versus respect and friendship, and when you can achieve that, it's all about finding people that respect you, but respect is earned, not just given blankly, right? So you can craft many people into the perfect tools by working with them and growing them and showing them that you're not better than them. You're one of them. And that is what is going to create the best sense of camaraderie and teamwork in a business.
Yeah, I think Simon Sinek said something about being a leader is like you're kind of the last person that leaves. Like you are not the first, you are the last. And you're serving your team as well. You're not just serving your clients and customers, but having that humility and care is so important and not everybody has that.
No, definitely not. I think a lot of people end up in positions of leadership definitely throughout. And this probably adapts to any career, right? But like, you're really good at one thing, and you keep being given more and more responsibility, and all of a sudden you're a leader, regardless of whether you have good leadership skills. And some people get forced into a position of leadership, and they think it's just about yelling and saying, no, just do it, and it's not.
Yeah.
Because I can't tell you the amount of times I've wanted to ask a superior in the place that I work, say, hey chef, I know you're asking me to do this, but like, why do we do it this way? And they're like, don't fucking ask why, just fucking do it. I don't need to explain myself, just fucking do it. And that's such a shutdown of motivation, right? Because I'm not asking you to undermine you. I may be thinking that there's a better way of doing things, but it's because I'm curious. It's because I want to understand why we do things this way. If I understand why we do things this way, that only serves you more. If I understand why we do what we do, that's just better for all of us. So, there's always this thing in kitchens, and it's a live act, and no doubt in any other career where it's a live act, you don't change your systems in the middle of service. But sometimes an employee will walk up to me like, hey chef, why don't we start doing it this way instead? I feel like this is going to be so much better. I'm like, wait. You have a line out the door. We will discuss this after service. If you think you have an idea, we can discuss it after service, right? If you just want to ask me why we're doing this, great. I can tell you why, but we're not going to change things right now. We will circle back to that, right? So there's an opportunity to learn, and I know that I have gained the respect of my crew by being genuine to where I'm at life. I'm 27 now. When I was 24, probably like 80% of my roster was older than me. I had cooks that were 10 years older than me working for me. They're like, why the fuck would I have to listen to this kid? I'm like, well, first of all, I write your checks. But second of all, like, I get it. Like, you do have more experience than me. So learning when to be firm with people that don't necessarily respect you has been a challenge. But the way I went about that personally as a young person who understood that I'm not going to just get respect right away was making sure that everybody understood that mistakes would be forgiven, because I was just as likely to make a mistake as the next person. And I said, guys, look, when you make a mistake, we're all going to learn from it. And when I make a mistake, we're all going to learn from it.
I love
And we're
that.
just going to get through the day.
I love that. I loved this conversation. I hope you come back. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess last thing too, just tell everybody that you have a brick and mortar coming. So
Yeah.
Raj, you're in Hana World Market, but now you are the new owner of some place that you cannot disclose, but it
I
will.
can. No, 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 no. Yeah. So it's 2007 Kramer Lane. It's on. It's pretty close to the Q2 Stadium. It's on Kramer and Metric, so it's not too far from the current shop. We wanted to go central, but ultimately, like this property was just like rough, like diamond in the rough. Just couldn't say no to it. I was like, the financials of it, like again, like I'll be able to pay this place's rent in half a day. And if Ramen Del Barrio is already a destination restaurant, doesn't matter if I went downtown or not. Like I'm already doing 300 covers a day out
Mhm.
of Hana World where I don't even have proper signage on the street, right? You don't know that Ramen Del Barrio is there unless you were looking for it.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's going to be the final evolution of Ramen Del Barrio. We're going Super Saiyan 3 over here. It's going to basically Ramen del Barrio has always been this kind of hybrid ramen shop izakaya, right? Kimuri Tatsuya is a huge inspiration for me. I am repping,
Yep.
but it's basically it's a tapas bar of sorts, a gastropub. You have small bites, shareables, and snacks, and then you would have a sipping program or a beer selection to go along with that, and it's a very social eating experience. So for us, that translates to the tacos, the crudos, the aguachiles. Those are your small bites, and then the ramen is your finisher. That's your heavy, and that's always been the formula here at the shop. But we haven't been able to serve alcohol. So once we get to the brick and mortar and we can finally do that, you're going to find a selection of Japanese and Mexican beer. We'll have a whiskey cocktail program from Japan, and then a tequila program from Mexico. It'll just be this fully fledged, full product, and also the ambiance, right? Like when you go to Ramen del Barrio at the market, you get a one-dimensional view of what Ramen del Barrio is. You get to look at the stall as it is. In the brick and mortar, you get all four corners, and you get a ceiling above you, and you get a floor beneath you that is entirely Ramen del Barrio. Because with this fusion concept, in anything in general, the more you can flush it out, the more credible it is, right? So anytime you have an idea, you're basically projecting it through different mediums. You have the food, the music, the decor, and the more specific your idea is, the more to your advantage is fleshing these things out, right? Because the more Japanese and Mexican memorabilia have on the wall, the more curated the music selection, the curated the drink program, the attitude, all of these things just reinforce that idea. This brick and mortar is going to be a culmination of a bazillion ideas that have been leaking out of my head for like 3 years now that I just couldn't do because of the limitations that we've had, and I am very excited to finally get this project done in its final form.
That is so exciting. I can't wait. And then also I want to start a petition to like have a really cool yakitori place in
Yeah,
Austin. It's like
yeah.
yakitori sucks here in Austin.
Dude, yeah, there's not a lot of it. And I think it's just like this
I used to work at a yakitori restaurant.
word in
Yeah,
Cali or here.
San Diego. Yeah.
Nice, nice. San Diego has great food from what I've seen. Like it's there's a great like Latino and Asian population there, so I'm sure they have an incredible selection of food. My mom is from like the Bay Area, so I spent a lot of time visiting like Los Altos, San Jose, Palo Alto area, and like Mountain View. So I
Amazing.
had a little experience out there. But yeah, so I think San Diego, and then I want to cross over to Tijuana and Baja California, Ensenada. There's some incredible seafood out there that I'm really dying to check out.
And I think you will. I'm like so
Oh yeah.
excited. And the fact that I had no idea you were 27. I was like, I know he's in his 20s, but like
Yeah.
which side is early or like mid?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being on here. And come back for,
Sure.
maybe a couple months, maybe in a year. Let's see where this
Sure.
thing goes.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Great.